Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. Now RuneScape is absolutely massive. There's so much content in this game that is very obscure or very dated or kind of legacy content, and throughout the years a lot of it becomes forgotten. So today I thought I'd have a look at some really interesting but kind of forgotten items in old school RuneScape. Most of these I had never heard before, and the rest of them, the only reason I knew about them is out of sheer luck, barring a few. Now most of these items are pretty useless. I mean, if they are useful they wouldn't be forgotten. But most of them do actually have uses, and I mean, they could be kind of useful in very certain niche circumstances, and a lot of them have really interesting stories behind them, so I think this is going to be a fun video. I really hope you guys enjoy. If you do enjoy my videos, I would really appreciate it if you took the time to go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Always helps a lot, and hit that notification bell if you want to get notified whenever I upload. Alright guys, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, the first item on the list here is actually the ParaMaya Ticket. Now this item is weird for quite a few different reasons. Now what the ParaMaya Ticket does is it allows you to spend the night in the dormitory of the ParaMaya Inn. If you're kind of confused by that, well, you should be. Now this is a legacy feature from all the way back in RuneScape Classic, back from a time when you actually had to sleep in a bed to reduce your fatigue. It was kind of a short period in the game, but that is what this whole ParaMaya Ticket is about. Now there's only two ways to get a ParaMaya Ticket. First up here you can buy it directly from the inn, which is probably the easiest way to do it. But secondly here, there's actually a really obscure drop source, and that is the barrels in the Faerell caves. This on its own is already one of the most obscure pieces of content in the entire game. You find these barrels in the Legends quest, and the only reason these things are kind of well known now is because of a friend. But essentially you smash these barrels and either an item will drop out of it or a monster will spawn. And of those obscure items, there's a very rare chance of getting a ParaMaya Ticket. Now how does this apply to old school RuneScape, because you can't really sleep in this game anymore? Well, essentially it's kind of just cosmetic. If you have the ParaMaya Ticket, it will allow you to gain access to the dormitory on the second level of the ParaMaya Inn, but you can't actually sleep in the beds or restore your fatigue in any way. And unlike an RS2, this item is now untradeable, so you can't even buy it from the Grand Exchange, so you have to go either buy it yourself or get it by smashing barrels. Okay, next up here we have the Satchel. Now there's quite a few different types of satchels, but they're all obtained in the Tower of Life. Now most people don't go in here to begin with here, and I've never seen a satchel before. Now the way you get this item is by participating in the creature creation minigame. Essentially you're kind of Frankenstein and you create some creatures by bringing things like red spider eggs, cow hides, unicorn horns, and reanimating and bastardizing some animals together. Now by doing that, there's a pretty good chance that you'll get a satchel drop. And there are 6 different kinds, although they operate the same way. There's a black satchel, the gold satchel, green satchel, the plain satchel, red satchel, and the rune satchel. Now this item is actually tradable, and essentially what you can do with this is you can equip it into your offhand slot, and it will hold a banana, a cake, and a triangle sandwich, which in total heals 20 hit points. Now it does take multiple bites to consume all the food, but it is actually a pretty decent item for only taking up a single item slot or a single inventory slot. Pretty inconvenient because it uses some weird items, but I think it's really interesting. Although, I mean, the triangle sandwich is pretty damn obscure, so I'm not sure how you would get many of those. Okay, so next up here we have an item that actually could be kind of useful, and that is the Rogue Kit. Now this is obtained during the Rogue Dan's minigame. And what it can actually do is it's a stackable item in your inventory, and you can transform it into either a chisel, a rope, a tinderbox, or a spade. As you can imagine, that would actually be kind of useful if you are questing and you needed extra inventory spots. Like for example, if you needed 3 or 4 ropes for a quest, you could just take 4 of these, which do stack. For example, if you were doing the Shiloh Village quest, you actually need all 4 of those items, a chisel, rope, tinderbox, and spade, yet you also need to bring food with you to defend against the undead. So this actually could have a use. Now the only issue is it's not tradable. The only way to get it is from the Rogue's Den minigame, and there's about a 3 out of 8 chance of obtaining the Rogue Kit when you actually crack a safe. So it's not very convenient to get, but if you do happen to have them in your bank, why not? Okay, next up here we have a really interesting item. What it is the Mud Pie. Now this item is actually equipable, and I wouldn't really consider it useless. It actually seems like it could be pretty good. Now like I said, you can equip the pie, and what you can do is, well, you can throw it at somebody. Now it doesn't really do much damage, but what it does do is it decreases the run energy of the person you hit with the pie. If they have 100% run energy, it's going to lower it by 25%, and then 20%, and then 15%, down to a minimum of 5%. Now I could see this actually having kind of niche uses in maybe dead man mode or other PKing circumstances, although I'm assuming that the use is a little bit too inconvenient. It doesn't do any damage, and if a player just has stamina potions, it's not going to be that useful, but still a really interesting item. I'm not sure if I've ever seen anyone use this in a PK before, but that would be epic. Now the only way to get a mud pie is by looting it from a baby impling or making it yourself. Now I was kind of interested in how you make it. You actually just use a compost, a bucket of water, and clay. Okay, next up here we might have probably one of the most useful items on this list, and that is the bolt pouch. Personally, never used this item before, never heard of this item, but it's actually kind of useful. Now to get the bolt pouch is really easy. You just have to have completed or at least started the giant dwarf to get access to Keldagrim. From there you need to run to the crossbow shop and talk to Herko. Now he doesn't actually sell it in his store interface. You actually need to talk to him and ask about ammo to be given the option to purchase the pouch. Now the bolt pouch can carry 4 different types of bolts and up to 10,000 of each. Now this would actually be potentially useful some places because you may want to bring diamond bolt E's and ruby bolt E's. Now the fact that this thing can store 4 bolts in a pouch is pretty interesting, but with that said, I can kind of see why nobody really uses this, and the reason for that is I can't think of any piece of content that would require more than 2 different types of bolts at a time. And as you can equip 1 bolt into your ammo slot and 1 in your inventory, there is no difference between having 2 different bolts with you, 1 in the pouch and 1 equipped versus not having the pouch at all. But I do think if there is new content in the future that requires multiple different types of bolts, this item actually could be useful, which I find pretty fascinating because I don't think many people, and including me, have ever heard of this before. Okay, so next up here we have another really interesting kind of legacy item, and that is the Disc of Returning. Now this item was initially introduced into the game during the Midsummer event of 2013, but now you can buy it directly from Diango's toy store. Now essentially what you can do with it is if you go to the Dwarven Mine and activate it, it will bring you to the Black Hole. The Black Hole is simply just a dark area with nothing in it. Now the Black Hole is a throwback to earlier versions of RuneScape when it was actually a punishment and players would be sent here as kind of a temporary ban or go sit in the corner kind of punishment. So I think it's really interesting they included it in Old School RuneScape. Another really interesting thing about the Disc of Returning is occasionally when you drop it, it will actually make you dance, or perform the dance mode anyway. So a pretty interesting item. Okay, next up here we have another interesting item from the Tower of Life, and that is the tea flask. Now I've personally never had a tea flask before, but what it does is it actually can store 5 cups of plain tea. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for things like nettle tea, POH tea, or any other thing in a teacup, but you can have 5 doses of tea in it, and it will boost your attack by 3 levels just like any other tea glass. And once again, you get it from the creature creation minigame, similar to the Satchel. They are also dropped by all of the different creatures here at a rate of 1 in 10. I think it would be kind of cool if at least you could put the POH tea in there and maybe store it for later or something. That would actually be useful. Now that I think about it though, can you bank POH teas? I don't think so. Alright, next up here I have a couple items on this list, and when I say they are forgotten items, I mean like the developers maybe just forgot about them. There's a few different ones here, but a good example is the tile. A tile is an item that is absolutely useless. It's not equipable. You can obtain it in game, but it's not tradable. It has absolutely no use except for just existing in the game. A lot of people speculated the tile would be used in the construction skill when it released in 2006, but it turned out that it was not used there either. So it's just kind of continued on as a absolutely useless item, and the only place you can get them is actually in the wilderness. Now the tile isn't the only completely useless forgotten item in this game. There is also the brass necklace, which at least you can equip that, so it's just kind of a cosmetic item. There is the potion that is dropped by an imp. Again, I don't think there's any use to that, but even the potion has a very small chance of being used in a quest. So yeah, I think the tile really takes the cake here. Okay, and finally here we have the Shadow Sword. Now the only way to get this item is from the General Shadows mini quest, and it's kind of invisible, similar to the Ghostly Robes. Now I never ended up doing this mini quest, and I've seen it very seldomly. Now it's not a very strong weapon. I mean, it's similar in strength to a black two-hand sword, but what's kind of interesting about it is the fact that even though it's an untradeable item, it is always lost on death, which means even if you die to a monster outside the wilderness, it's still not kept and you will lose it every time. The only time you'll keep it is if it's actually one of your 3 items you keep on death, The only actual use beyond a weapon, it's actually used in a master tier emote clue. And honestly, it's a pretty damn cool weapon, but nobody uses it, and I'm pretty sure most people forgot about it. Anyway guys, that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any more obscure items from old school RuneScape you'd like me to include, let me know with a comment down below, because I know there are some really weird things in this game, and it's always fun digging them up. Anyway guys, thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.